I worked with a group this week around confidence, and we started to look at what is confidence? How do we build it? And what do we do when we feel like we have a lack of confidence? When we started to look at what is confidence, we quickly started to realize that it's a word, a term we use for a feeling that we have. And we started to look at, well, what brings about this feeling of either confidence or lack thereof? And so we started a list of things that we felt might lead us to having confidence or not having confidence. And some of the things that were on that list were your skill set or expertise in an area, your experience, your past experience, how articulate you are, how well you can communicate. And then we took each one of those and we started looking at them a little more closely. And so we started with skills or expertise, and we thought, well, do we know anyone who might not be particularly skillful or not really an expert in an area, and yet they would describe themselves as confident, or they exude confidence? And very quickly people would put their hands up and they're like, yeah, absolutely, we know people like that. And then we looked at, well, let's look at experience. Like if they've had a long career, whether they've done it many times, and so they've got the experience of, been there, done that. And so we looked, are there people that have very little experience or are doing something for the first time, but again, exude that confidence, feel confident in doing that thing that they're doing for the first time? And again, very quickly, there were people that said, yes, absolutely, we know people that feel confident despite not having the experience. And then we went down each item on the list, and very quickly we realized that there was no one thing that if you had that, it would equal confidence. There was always an exception to this kind of formula that we try to convince ourselves, if I had A through Z, well then of course I would be confident. That's just simply not the case, because for every single item on that list, we could quickly find someone who was an exception. We could quickly actually find many people who are exceptions to this kind of belief around where confidence comes from. And so we looked a little closer and we said, well, what's true universally? What's true for everyone? What's true for the nature of confidence? And what we started to see was that confidence was an interpretation of a thought that we were having in the moment. And so if we had the thought, I'll do well, or I've done well, or I'm prepared, just an example of some of the thinking that we could have, then we would have a confident feeling. And if we had another thought around, oh, what if someone asks me something that I don't know the answer to, or am I prepared, any kind of doubtful, insecure thinking, well then often that would lead to a lack of confidence. And so the important things here is, number one, that it was a in the moment interpretation of a thought that we were having, right? This idea that there are confident people and not confident people started to look very strange to us, because we know that the nature of thinking is not one that is always the same and there all the time, right? We know that thinking comes and goes. We know that we cannot control our thinking, though we certainly can influence it. And the really beautiful thing that we started to see is that irrespective of our thinking, whether secure thinking or insecure thinking, there was an opportunity to decide whether we were going to give that thought any weight. I need to do all of these things in order to feel confident. Started to really look strange to us because we didn't need to do all those things. We didn't even need to change our thinking, because the thinking that we have has no weight to it. It's neutral until we interpret it, right? And the interpretation is the beautiful thing to see. It's the choice of engaging with that thought any further or just seeing it for what it is. A random, transient flow of thinking, of energy that comes and goes, just like the waves of the ocean come and go. And so I leave you with this just for you to start thinking about this, right? Well, what does this all mean for my own feeling of confidence? What does this mean for all of the things that are said around how to build confidence? Can we even build confidence if it's a in-the-moment interpretation of a thought that we can't really control? Certainly we can influence some of our thinking, right? Affirmations and reframing, we know that can shift some of our thinking to more positive thinking versus negative thinking. And we cannot entirely control it. We can't get rid of negative thinking, and feeling like we can and in trying to get rid of it just has us in it more and more. And so if we start to see confidence as just an interpretation of our thinking, and we start to see that once we see that we have maybe been kind of stuck in some insecure thinking, we don't have to change it, but we can just simply sit back and let it pass, because it always does. It changes our relationship with this thing we call confidence. And that's what I'm pointing to, and that I'd really love you to look and see what you see.